Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear from both sides on the debate over Common Core education standards, and we'll find out how the state managed to set a new record for exports last year. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The state legislature recently killed attempts to keep Arizona from continuing to use Common Core education standards, but the issue remains controversial, and tonight we hear from both sides of the Common Core debate. Joining us now is State Representative Paul Boyer, a 10th grade teacher who is against Common Core. Also with us is Amanda McAdams, the 2011 Arizona Teacher of the Year. She is in favor of the standards. Good to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's get started here. Well, what is Common Core? Why do you think it's bad for Arizona?
These are a set of, and I know we'll disagree, but federal standards when 45 states have the exact same standards that the feds expect all Arizona students to know. The reason why it's bad is, well, first off, there are no magic standards. No matter what standards that we adopt, we still need to have excellent teachers in the classroom. The biggest problem is federal intrusion. If you look at the U.S. Constitution, the word education is not mentioned once, meaning that it's left to the states. They have no business being involved in our education system.
What is Common Core? Why is it good for Arizona?
There are a set of standards that we are holding our students to meet a certain set of skills at each grade level. And then I 100% agree, teachers make the difference in the classroom. The best indicator of student achievement is quality instruction. So our teachers have taken these standards, looked at what skills we have to meet, and then we have built a curriculum that is going to help elevate our students.
Critics will say that this was created by a group of governors, a group of politicians, not educators. Valid?
I was not there for the creation. I was there for part of the editing. I did get to see the first, second, and third drafts of the standards and was part of an Arizona coalition that got to give input before the final draft was released.
Arizona Coalition gives input. How is that federal overreach?
Can I go real quick?
Yes.
The business community also had some major involvement in the creation of the standards. My problem with that is the emphasis on vocation. I focus on, in my school, a liberal education, not in the political sense, but a freeing education. An education that helps students become a better person, a better student, and also civically minded, with vocation trailing third.
So, what exactly do you disagree with the fact that this has a federal government tone to it, that it's overreach, or do you disagree with the fact of what students are being taught?
It's more than a tone. It's federal intrusion into the education system. What I mean by that, so for example, I have a menu of assessments, House Bill 2180, that says that the state board shall require a menu of assessments, not the Common Core test or the AZ Merit test, which has not been field tested yet, by the way. So we have to get permission from the feds to say, we want to, we have a test that's more in line with our curriculum, so we want to use this test instead, maybe the SAT, the AP, the Cambridge exam, several tried and true tests that we already use. We shouldn't have to ask permission from the feds, and with the risk of losing $800 million from the feds if we don't use this particular test.
How do you respond to that?
Well, we went through a procurement process in Arizona where many of those same companies he mentioned were part of that procurement process, and Arizona themselves selected the test. So federal government wasn't telling us what test, we got to choose the test. Now, he's right, it hasn't been field tested. So my vote is still out on what will happen with AZ Merit. But we're talking about the standards, not the assessment. The standards are a set of skills that each student needs to reach at the end of each grade level.
Is the federal government, though, as critics say, dictating Arizona education?
No.
How come?
In my district, my teachers have taken this same set of skills. You could look at many states' standards. There are many in common. Talk about theme. That's a common standard. So our teachers have taken that standard and they decide what curriculum to build around that standard. No federal government's come in and said, you have to use this textbook or this novel or this story. Absolutely not. My teachers have developed that on their own.
How do you respond?
Well, it actually does, and here's why. Assessments drive curriculum, or a test. So as a teacher, I know that if my students are going to be tested on certain criteria, I need to teach to that. And since we can't dictate what tests that we offer to our students, it certainly is going to dictate the curriculum. We have a teacher shortage right now in Arizona, and we're always talking about what can we do to get high quality teachers in the classroom and retain those that are already here. If you tell a teacher that, by the way, on top of everything that you're doing right now, you're not going to have any autonomy in your classroom, and you have to teach this particular curriculum that is driven by the feds. We're going to have even a more mass exodus than we already have.
No autonomy in the classroom dictated by the feds.
No, curriculum is not dictated. Curriculum is built by teachers. The standards and the skills that are required at each grade level, that's what the standards dictate. Curriculum, 100% teacher built with parent input, with school board input.
But I think the argument is if the test says you got to know ABC, the curriculum better be teaching ABC.
And to me, that's a separate issue. We can talk about, is this assessment appropriate? Again, I don't know how I feel about that assessment yet. We haven't seen it. But I do know that what we're doing with the standards in my district is a wonderful thing, and our students are progressing.
But the problem is we still have to ask the permission slip from the feds to say, can we take this other assessment in lieu of the Common Core assessment?
Should there not be some sort of regulation and guideline involved when you're trying to get a mass assessment going?
From a state perspective, absolutely. The state, we are in the education business. We do determine what is and isn't acceptable as far as standards are concerned, assessments, and then we allow local education areas to determine curriculum. That's just the way we've always been doing it. We should keep it that way. We shouldn't hand over even more to the feds. The
idea that the feds don't know Arizona kids, don't know Arizona education, the diversity of a southwestern state like this is something that perhaps the quote-unquote feds aren't aware of. Is that a valid argument against Common Core standards?
No, because the feds haven't designed the test. We did a procurement process, and a committee got to select which assessment Arizona chose to make, and we will have Arizona teachers involved in creating items for that assessment.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I haven't seen the AZ Merit test, but it's my understanding that we opted out of the PARCC assessment, which was a consortium of about 20, 30 states. My understanding is the current test is another consortium, so it's very similar to other states as well. My point is it should be Arizona specific. I don't think that we're dense enough in Arizona that we can't come up with a test on our own.
Well, but I think the question also arises, what makes Arizona so special as to think that they can do a better test than what is being developed en masse with everyone involved?
Well, that's why my menu of assessments, again, it could be the SAT, the ACT, the PISA test, the Cambridge exam. I mean, these are all tests that we've been using for, in some cases, decades. We should have the freedom to do that if our curriculum is more in line with that. We shouldn't have the feds come to us and say, nope, you have to take this particular test.
I'm hearing federal overreach as a consistent theme here among critics, and we hear about this a lot. Is it a valid criticism?
No, it's misinformation. Again, the federal government did not select our test. Arizona did. And if we chose to work with multiple states on that test, I'm okay with that because our Ames test was a 10th grade graduation standard. And we wrote that test, and I think we have room to grow in our assessment writing ability by collaborating with other states. I think that's a great thing.
Do you think this is a step down, a step back from Ames?
The assessment or the standards?
Yes.
Well, the assessment, yes. The standards, I'm reviewing them on my own right now. So I actually adhere to the social studies standards. I teach literature and history, so I don't have to adhere to the Common Core standards currently. So I'm currently reviewing them right now, line by line.
Okay, but I guess my question, and we've had similar conversations in the past, if Red China comes up with a test and a standard that really works and is good for kids, would you not use it simply because of the people who developed it as opposed to the results it might get?
I teach the genetic fallacy and not to avoid that. In other words, you look at the substance of the argument rather than who is giving you the argument. But we still should have the freedom and the autonomy as a state. Maybe we come to the conclusion that, you know what, 75% of the standards we'll keep. We'll chew the fruit, spit out the seeds, if you will. But we should have that autonomy. We shouldn't have the feds say, and I have right here some guidance from the feds saying, if you opt out of the assessment, the one assessment that every student in Arizona has to take, then you're in jeopardy of losing all Title I money.
He's right, but we selected that assessment. It was not mandated by anyone.
By we, though, you mean the State Board of Education that jumped in head first on the Common Core standards.
The State Board took the recommendation, but it was a separate committee who investigated the assessments, and there were multiple assessments to choose from. And that committee spent weeks researching, investigating to select the one that they fit.
But the committee was pro-Common Core.
I don't know that to be true.
Well, I do.
Well, but if the committee were anti-Common Core, I mean, that would yield a different result. You wouldn't be opposed to that.
Again, I'd like to see the assessment itself. I'd like to use assessments that we've already been using, and let's see how this assessment, other assessments work out in other states. Why rush into this right now? Why don't we see the results? Then we can continue using what we're already doing.
Are we rushing into this? Should we take a more measured approach?
I agree. We need to see the assessment. I don't know. I won't know until we see the assessment how I feel about the rigor of the items and the rigor of the prompts that students are asked to write about. I don't know yet.
What I know is we were sold a bill of goods at the legislature. We were told by Common Core supporters that, oh, you can opt out of these standards. You can opt out whenever you want. No big deal. Now we're told, and in committee I'm told, oh, this is going to cost millions of dollars. Teachers have already invested so much time and effort. You can't pull the rug out from them right now. And then we're also told that, well, standards are different than the assessment, so it won't dictate curriculum. Well, again, it does dictate curriculum because there is the one assessment.
But with good teaching, as we mentioned earlier in the room, any good teacher goes above and beyond when the assessment is below where they want their students to go.
Would it be a good thing for Arizona education if, after all of this, Common Core were scrapped? A good thing for Arizona education, a good thing for Arizona kids?
I think there's a way to do this in such a way that is great for Arizona kids, and that's to have a review process of the standards and to have a multiple list of assessments to give the curricular freedom for teachers in the classroom.
Should districts be able to opt out, basically, and do their own thing?
No.
Why not?
Again, we had a committee that selected this assessment. If our standards go across the board for all students and these are the skills they need to meet, and we selected an assessment that's aligned to those standards, how can you compare districts? How can you look at teachers and students to know if they are meeting these standards, if the assessments are all different quality, different lengths, different content?
I think we need to put a little bit more trust and confidence in our districts and our charters.
It sounds like the districts and charters kind of like Common Core, though.
Not all of them.
Well, no, but
a majority, 77% of Arizona teachers.
And you know what? And that's fine. But for the minority that don't, they should have the freedom not to. That's all.
All right. I think we got to stop it right there. Good conversation. Good to have you both here. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Arizona's economic growth may not feature an abundance of bright spots, but exports are showing big gains, with the state reaching a record level last year. Here to talk about that is ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business economist, Dennis Hoffman. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining.
Ted, great to be here.
All right, we're actually talking about something upbeat for a change with Arizona's economy. Why are exports up 34% since 2010?
Well, largely because they were so low in
Okay.
2009. No, can we just take a second? So why do economists, why do data wonks like me get giddy over exports? You know, is it that we want to feel good about shipping goods to some poor country or something? I mean, that's not it at all. Exports are absolutely key to the prosperity of a regional economy. So let me see if I can explain this. People walk around this state saying that construction is the driver of the state of Arizona because that's symptomatic of our challenges. Construction is not the driver. Our export-based businesses are the driver. Our electronics manufacturers, our aerospace defense folks. Most recently, we've gotten a real boost from service exporters in financial services, and that's the big insurance invasion, and even tourism is an export-based business.
I was going to ask, it seems to me like tourism would fall under the definition of export.
It is. And so the arithmetic here is we produce goods and services here, or sunshine in the case of tourism, and we ship it out of state, or we provide it to people outside the state, and in return, dollars flow in. Now, it's those local dollars then that end up chasing construction or any local service provider or any local retailer, for example. But you don't get growth in local retail without a vibrant export base.
So we got, as I mentioned, 34% since 2010, up 8% just since 2013,
Yeah.
21.1 billion that's a record high. Again,
Yeah, had
what
a
is
good
the
year.
state doing right? What are we exporting here?
Well, it's the usual suspects. In fact, I just kind of ticked through them. Electronics are the big deal. If you actually look at one category, it's aircraft, but they lump all of the aircraft activity into the one category. And electronics are kind of broken out. But if you aggregate up all the electronics pieces, our electronics manufacturers are accountable to most of our exporting. And where does it go, by the way? Mexico. So that is where the lion's share of it goes. Now, don't forget our copper extraction industries. That's a big piece of our export puzzle as well.
Interesting. Again, the numbers, Mexico, exports to Mexico up 39% since 2010, Canada 10%, Saudi Arabia up 67%. That aircraft?
Well, yes, and it's off a very, very low base.
Very low, yeah, okay, I get it. Same
So
thing
you
with
get-
Netherlands up 61% from zero is probably a pretty nice showing. So we're talking about electronics and we're talking about where these things are going, but are we seeing public policy as a factor for this increase, or is it just basically the nature of things?
It's pretty much the nature of things. Now, public policy, by the way, Ted, I think could do a much better job in this arena.
How?
Tariff reform and the Trans-Pacific deal. I hear so much rhetoric around regulation and that business is stifled by regulation, and fingers are pointed, the usual suspects of, the Affordable Care Act or taxes or Dodd-Frank, and those may indeed be holding some businesses back. But if we had tariff reform, if we were able to ship goods and services to Asia cheaper than we do now, or to Europe, if we weren't fettered by the tariff structure that we face, especially, Ted, during a time when the dollar is so strong. So the cost of our exports is really gone up in the last few months to the countries that are trying to import those products.
But explain why that tariff structure exists in the first place.
Oh, it's an artifact of concerns over protecting certain areas. Unions had a strong presence historically in that. So it's a group of folks that are really concerned about protecting industry and protecting jobs at home. And one of the true tenets of economics is that free trade makes everybody better off. Certainly there are local disruptions as that trade kicks in and jobs are lost in certain areas and people have to migrate to other opportunities. But as our export base grows, so will prosperity, and we really need to do a better job. My two things, when I hear about regulation holding business back, I say two things. Give me comprehensive immigration reform and give me tariff reform, and watch this economy flourish.
And as far as Arizona is concerned, I would imagine a proximity to California ports, proximity to maybe Mexican ports as well
Absolutely.
has to help. Are we taking full advantage of that?
I don't think so. I think we need to think of ourselves. And by the way, when I think of exports, all of this data is around exporting out of the country. But the same principle of regional economics applies if you export out of the state. Dollars flow into the state. If we export to California, dollars flow into the state. If we export products at the request of the Department of Defense and they go to bases around the nation, those dollars flow back in the states. So we need to take better advantage of our proximity to California. I think we ought to be to California as Ireland is to Europe. And Ireland has attracted a lot of foreign direct investment, and they've created an environment where firms and international businesses want to move to Ireland so that they can ship and do business with the European Union. We ought to be thinking about ourselves on the neighbor. We're the neighbor of a behemoth, California, very lucrative market, but it's very costly to do business over there. So why not here?
So last question. Obviously, we may have started at a low level, but I mean, a 34% increase in 4 or 5 years.
Good news.
It's not, yeah,
it's
you
very
can do
good
a lot
news.
worse.
Absolutely.
Can we do a lot better? Are you expecting us to continue this kind of increase?
The strength of the dollar is going to be a real headwind for 2015 and as long as the dollar remains strong. So we need to fight even harder. That's why things like tariff reform, I think, is really very, very important. A real strong dollar is a stifler in terms of exports. They just cost more.
So it's wise for us to take advantage while the dollar is high.
Seize the moment.
Yeah.
Seize the moment.
Always good to see you, Dennis. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Ted.
Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, it's our weekly update on what's happening at the state legislature with the Arizona Capital Times, and we'll check on news from Tucson in our monthly update, Southern Exposure. That's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.